Welcome to Tribe of Two, the officially unofficial podcast for all of Star Wars. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And today we're back to talk about Ahsoka, Season 1, Episode 6, Part 6, Far, Far Away. A.Ron, what'd you think of the introduction of Thrawn?
Well, it didn't blow me away like the previous two chapters, but, I mean, that's the big thing to talk about. The introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I guess Darth Swanson is the other. That's the thing that I just, like, I got really sad knowing that we're only going to get one season out of this guy. He's just so fucking good, and I'm just really curious to see what his plan is, like what his perfect society, what is he trying to engineer. He's just so fascinating, and we got a little bit more of his backstory because his student is just as eager as us to know about him, and it's just like, man, it's preemptively sad that this is going to be it for old Lord Ron here. I think that Grand Admiral Thrawn's introduction was perfect. It was really cool. I love this, like, exiled, degenerate, like, hobbled together Imperial remnant that's got that kitsugi. Is that how you pronounce the Japanese practice of stitching pottery, broken pottery together with gold? Seams. They got that effect. And how he's like, his prim and proper Grand Admiral, but his uniform's not as pristine as it should be. There's a stain here or there. And he's just like, he's a perfect envision of what I would think he looked like from the books. And he's the way he gets up that head of steam about wanting Ahsoka's complete history and her master and her homeworld and her culture. It's like, that's like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm from Thrawn. However, the second he walked on the scene, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's just the blue Elon Musk. And there's two thoughts I have with him. It's like, this is the perfect fucking Grand Admiral Thrawn, and also he looks like he looks like Elon Musk that's flunked out of the chocolate factory, like he would. So those are my thoughts. And then I guess, like, that's the other thing is, like, how you think they handled the Sabine Ezra reunion for someone who hasn't watched Rebels or Clone Wars. I think it worked for me, especially since they really set this up for a horrible dilemma of her getting exactly what she wants. But I think it's clear that it's not going to be anything like what Ezra wants, and it's going to be this perfect, Faustian bargain she's made with these devilish figures. So yeah, like I said, it's not as thrilling as the previous, but it's also, they know they got Thrawn to ooh and ah over. What do you think?
Yeah, I bet for people who were really, really jonesing to see Thrawn, this probably was a pretty thrilling episode, because that introduction. So, I mean, the introduction of Thrawn had me in cold sweats. I was shivering. I couldn't really sit up. My body was aching. I think it was Thrawn, right? I also got the COVID vaccine yesterday, so maybe it was that. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty effective, I thought, regardless of what my body was doing. I think that was cool. I am curious to see what Baylan's ultimate goal is here. He's talking in a macro scale on history, in the historical context, that I think is super interesting, because I want to talk about, like, what I think his end goal is going to be later in the episode, but
same.
That part has me maybe the most intrigued. Like, I know Admiral Thrawn, what he wants. He wants the galactic domination, right? Like, it's pretty easy to figure him out. But this Baylan guy wants something else, I think. So to me, that's the most interesting part of this. I don't know Ezra from a brick wall, so, like, the introduction of Ezra did basically nothing for me. Although, looking online, this was a huge moment for everybody who's seen any of the Rebel stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. So good for them. I'm glad they got that. For me, it was like, okay, Ezra, he's a dude who is a little flippant, whatever. And he's in for probably a rude awakening with the compromises Sabine has made to find him.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing
exciting.
that's really appealing to me. And as far as Ezra himself, I think he looks cool. He looks like a young, hip, force-using Star Wars dude, and that's probably what he is. So, because they're setting up for this guy. Like my understanding is he sacrificed essentially himself to take Thrawn off the fucking board, and the horror that he must feel to have that big of a sacrifice and to pay that high a price and to have someone, for what I would think even he would consider selfish reasons, come and undo all that work. And so they can all be stranded with the hermit crab. I'm really curious to see how they play that off, because that's something that Sabine has just set up these multilateral betrayals of the people who are close to us, and like that character should pay a price for that,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I don't know. I also feel like Filoni is hedging, and not there's that kind of like hinting that she's not going to pay that high, with Huyang kind of like, well,
yeah, there will be an argument, but it won't result in any loss for her, right? She'll get everything she wants, pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to pull like on the Marvel side where like the Scarlet Witch just turns into a big bad guy because of entirely understandable human reasons, but they're just also profoundly selfish and short-sighted. And regards to how you feel about, I guess, that Scarlet Witch plot line, that was a huge shift for that universe and for that character. And I don't know, maybe Filoni really knows what he's doing. He's going to turn Sabine into an Anakin type Skywalker that has to be redeemed.
Yeah, but maybe she'll get Ahsoka killed. This whole event will get Ahsoka killed, and Ahsoka season 2 will just be Sabine and Ezra, and it will truly be Rebels season 6. just like Book of Boba Fett, is Mandalorian season 2.5.
It would be curious to see if Filoni would ever kill like one, because it seems like that Ahsoka is his number one canon baby. But then you got Ezra, Sabine, like I guess Hera. Those are all like, does he have it in him to kill any one of those? But that, to be fair, like I never once watching the original trilogy thought that like Luke, Han, or Leia would actually die.
For sure.
So, it's fine to have a little bit of plot armor there.
So that's what I thought. Maybe we should get into the recap.
Let's do it.
Start off with Ahsoka and Huyang waiting as the Purgles fly them through hyperspace. To pass the time, they chat about the stories that Huyang used to tell her. Histories of the Galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3. Ahsoka admits she didn't tell Hera that Sabine made the choice to go with Baylan willingly. That troubles Huyang, and he suggests maybe it wasn't a choice at all. She was just gonna do what she was gonna do. That's what I mean. Like she could not make the choice to leave Ezra there.
Even Ahsoka is dipping its callous toe into the determinism waters. Really, Sabine had no fucking choice but to throw the whole galaxy back into civil war because she just really missed her friend. She had no agency. She was compelled by fate and forced. I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I mean, look, Star Wars has the whole Destiny thing built into it, right? I mean,
but it's constantly subverted. All the people saying it's your destiny get their asses wrecked because
but then there's an opposing destiny on the other side, which does actually come true, right? Anakin does bring balance to the Force, that kind of thing. So,
from a certain point of view, sure,
absolutely, yeah, yeah. So maybe they're going with that, or maybe they're just going with Sabine literally couldn't. She doesn't have it in her to make the choice to leave Ezra. If Ezra is out there, no matter what the price, she is going to choose to try and save him. So from that aspect, it's not a choice.
The other observation Huyang makes is that maybe she made the choice for herself, and that is your true fear. What does that mean? Can you translate that from
made
spooky
the choice
robot
for herself?
And that's what Ahsoka fears? Is this just
that Ahsoka is trying to teach her things and she's not listening? I don't know, because that is definitely a fear of Ahsoka.
Or is it just that she's like, selfishness is one of those, Yoda things. It's a path that leads to the dark side.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's an altruistic decision to sacrifice the. No, I can't. I can't get. I find it very hard to get into the mind of Sabine. I'm very much more of Ahsoka, where it's like
there's a greater good here.
And then it's just the stakes are so fucking high. It's like literally bringing back an effective Adderall addicted Hitler. Back into the world to unleash just because like the freedom fighter who put him away in the first place, you miss him so much. And that's what I said. It's like to me, if this series follows through, like Sabine has to pay for that in some way. I don't even think you can pay for that with your life. Like that's just trillions of beings suffering and being enslaved potentially. It's high stakes stuff.
I was curious what their version of a different galaxy was going to look like. If it was going to be, gravity doesn't work the same here, or the laws of the universe are different in another. No, it's just different place, same shit. Which I was relieved to see.
I didn't want the Star Trek does that too. It's like, oh, we're on the edge of the galaxy. Does physics even work out here? It's like, yes, it fucking does. Come on.
These are universal laws for a reason. Another question I had is, I haven't really thought about it until now. Is a droid really the best person to be teaching younglings about the Force? A droid that cannot feel the Force itself? Wouldn't you want a Jedi, someone who has a special, like, close relationship with the Force, teaching them these things? Well, everything he's saying about the Force rings hollow here. It's like, I read in a book once that the Force, surrounds and binds all things. Like, dude, Obi-Wan knew this shit intuitively because he felt it.
Right, it's like going to get dating advice from a Catholic priest. It's like, well, in theory, if I look in the Song of Solomon here, it sounds like you have to compare their rear ends to a charming mountain goat. Try that, my son, and go. Right. You will know you will sin no more if you follow my father is giving the advice. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like, how the fuck would this robot? But on the other hand, like they say, if you can't do, then teach. So it's like, why waste a Force user with these snot-nosed punks when they're just going to be mostly throwing up on each other and bashing each other's heads on a lightsaber? Save Master Yoda for when they quit all that, I guess. Although they did make it canon that Master Yoda loves to get in with the pissers, the pants pissers, and.
Read them stories, tell them stories.
The real goo goo gaga crowd there. I want to make two observations of my own. I think it's interesting that two science fiction series in as many weeks have done riffs of Star Wars titles. One was this Foundation, which it was long ago, not far away, and now you've got Far, Far Away.
It's almost like Star Wars is a cultural touchstone for multiple generations of people. It's almost like that.
How much willpower did Filoni use to not call this, or to not have Huyang say a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away? Because that'd be a nice subversion, right?
Sure, he loves to subvert. He loves to cut those off, just truncate them, but like. Here he goes all in on it, right? I mean, I guess he didn't run down the full crawl, but that's the full line. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Do you have any guesses of what story Huyang actually told her that it set place a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away?
It's got to be like a Dathomir folktale, right?
I thought it'd be funny if it's just literally Star Trek 4.
Okay, sure. The whales.
This faraway galaxy, the Milky Way. Speaking of space whales, let me tell you about a time a space whale probe visited the planet Earth. Yeah,
that's how we have transparasteel or something.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's how we got transparent. Yeah,
because of Scotty.
Those were the ancestors of the hyperspace whales that you see today. They took a ride in a Klingon hold, and they just got a taste for it.
Love it. Well, did you have another observation, or was that both of them?
No, I think that's plenty. I think that's plenty.
All right, let's go over to Sabine. She's on the Eye of Sion. She's shackled in a cell, not too happy about it. And Baylan comes up, and she reminds him that we had a deal. He doesn't seem too concerned with honoring it at the moment.
Yeah, she's getting the firsthand lesson on what that whole lawful evil thing looks like. She's going to be dealing with a lot of lawful evil in her future, because that seems like what I don't know. Maybe he's lawful neutral,
perhaps.
But Thrawn certainly lawful evil.
Mm-hmm. And then Baylan goes to see Morgan to say that Sabine can still be used to them. They exit hyperspace around Peridia, the home of the Dathomiri, and a star whale graveyard, apparently. Burgle graveyard. They pick up a beacon on the surface, and Shin fetches Sabine. They head down to the planet. This is crazy looking.
Yeah, I actually really like this world building. I love the idea they kind of are combining, the Lion King elephant graveyard with the space whale migration, and the detail that this entire ring around this planet is like every hyperspace whale, every Purgil patriarch and matriarch. I think that's a really fucking cool idea.
Here's the weird thing to me, and maybe I was wrong about things working the same in this galaxy, but wouldn't the space whales just be space whales, not skeletons?
Well, I mean, they were designed to live in the deeps of space, so obviously the bacteria and the tube worms and everything else that would eat them when they're dead would also thrive in a space type of environment. So there's just a whole complex ecosystem in this orbiting whale fall that they've got going on here.
What is the ecosystem there, though? That's what I want to know. Like, what do they eat in space? I mean, that's probably explainable, but like, what's the point? I mean, the point here on Earth of bacteria eating your materials after you die is to deposit those materials back into the ecosystem. I don't know what the ecosystem in space is.
Every time you say that, you cause a earnest 32-year-old software engineer to write me a Wookiepedia article talking about what Purgils eat and crap and all that kind of stuff. So unless you really want to know, don't make them do all that unpaid labor.
All right. My bad. Don't worry about it. Space junk. It's cool, though. It's very cool looking.
It is very cool. It's very cool in the world building, and like that this is like that they have this great migration where they visit all these galaxies, and this is like the end point where, that like anyone who's too old to make it, they just kind of swim out there. I'm sure there'll be maybe there's an episode of Rebels that deals with the funerary customs of these Purgil, but
and it gives you the perfect excuse for Ahsoka showing up, right? Like, this is just their natural route, and they're going to end up here. Just happens to be this Dathomiri planet.
And if you go with the idea that like they were inspired by to use hyperspace by observing the whales, I mean, that's like, it's not untrue that a lot of mankind's attempts to fly were based on copying things in nature, right? I can get that, and like that you're essentially following kind of game trails through unexplored territory in a very, Lewis and Clark kind of, you're just following these twisty little whale migration places to get to. I like it. What do you think of so this is like a big hyperspace jump, and you can tell because they have fire and lightning and all kinds of shit coming off of the thing when it exits it. Did you need that? Because I feel like, why would a big hyperspace? Why would you suddenly turn into Marty McFly exiting the DeLorean into 1952 just because you jumped 100,000 light years instead of 10,000 light years?
I don't know.
Maybe a million light years. Maybe it's a lot bigger difference than I'm thinking. I don't know. I just thought that was really funny.
Number of light years, but sure, I can see it. They then land at this temple, religious site. I don't know what it is, where some witches are doing laser tricks, and they welcome Morgan as one of them. Thrawn is apparently
Pink Floyd concert.
Yeah. Apparently Thrawn's on his way, but he's not here yet. And the witches claim that Sabine is dangerous because she's got the Jedi stink on her, so they send her into another cell.
These witches of Dathomir, I don't know if you're old enough to get this reference, and certainly no one outside the central Indiana area will, but the design of these witches looks exactly like famed late night TV horror host Sammy Terry. The color of the robes, the exact like face paint on the skin. It's just he looks like a warlock of Dathomir, and I laughed out loud when I first saw them. No fault of their own, but
Sure.
local legend Sammy Terry. I thought it was also cool that like this is recognizably the same, like the ruins of Dathomir on the other side of the other galaxy, except for this is main like all the rock is polished black marble with like gold filigree. It's a matter of fact, it's almost certainly the exact same set that they then weathered and distressed to do the other filming.
No, it feels like they're portals, right? Like you could get from one to the other almost.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool concept. Very Stargatey, right? Like, you know, especially with Grand Admiral pulling up in his Star Destroyer and parking right on the top of it, just like Ra with his spaceship. But it was a cool scene. I liked it.
I was a little dismayed by this quote unquote cell that they put Sabine in. Like, okay, if you want to throw maybe Pedro Pascal, like the Mandalorian, into this cell, that might hold him, but Sabine can crawl right out that window. That window is enormous compared to her body.
Maybe it's like a sky cell, or anytime, because I started like trying to figure out, because anytime you're holding a Force user, it's problematic, right? But I'm like, well, it's the witches of Dathomir. They know Jedi, they hate Jedi, they probably have special anti-Jedi security, so maybe it's like a sky cell situation.
Sabine only has 2 midichlorians, so
true.
A Force user she is not.
Just enough to rub them together and get some Force heat, baby. It's what I'm telling you.
But she's also got a slim body. She can get right out that window.
True.
Smaller windows on jail cells. That's my recommendation for Star Wars.
They keep on cutting to Darth Swanson, like going at them, like, you know, mistreating his prisoner or whatnot. But like, I don't know that actually tracks, you know, because like, how dare you betray this person nakedly instead of dastardly and behind their back like me?
Instead of from a certain point of view, right?
Yeah, and he's like smirking it up when she's complaining about her mistreatment, but then there it's like, I don't know, it's of course I don't know, maybe there is just like a genuine animosity, like he hates these Dathomiri witches as much as they hate him.
Yeah,
so
I'm
he's
super curious to talk about that. This next scene is where I kind of want to talk about the bulk of his goals, so let's get into that. Baylan's feeling uneasy because of the folktale stories he's heard about this place, and Shin says, sometimes stories are just stories. And then he tells her the story of how empires always rise and fall, and how he wants to find, according to him, the beginning to finally bring the cycle to an end. And here is like the most interesting thing in the episode to me, because it gives some veiled context to what he's actually trying to do. She suggests like, maybe it's our time to wield power, right? If this is cyclical, let's do this. We're ready. And he's like, you sweet summer child, I'm not trying to wield power. I think what he's trying to do is end the cycle. When he's
breaking
talking
the wheel.
Essentially break the wheel.
Yeah, I'll match your Game of Thrones reference with one of my own. He's trying to do a Queen Dany thing.
Totally. At least in my opinion, that's what he's doing. And in my idea of doing that, and the context around which he's talking about this is like the Jedi Temple, the Jedi falling, the Empire rising. It's kind of around the Force aspect of it a little bit. And in my opinion, I think he might be trying to attack the Force itself. Like, if the Force is causing all these rise and falls, then let's just eliminate the Force, and that will end the cycle.
I think so I have 3 primary theories. One is, yes, he is trying to do something that destroys the Force, that just destroys the Force as a force, haha, in the galaxy. I wish I could reach out and tell him, that like, hey, dude, we don't have the Force in our galaxy, and we
Yeah.
we shit things up so bad. It's you're looking to blame the Force just like people blame religion. No, it's all here. It's all here. It's all the shit between our ears that's causing this. But so that's one thing. The thing is, I don't like about that theory is like I don't think it's any kind of canon Star Wars that the Force traditions or the Force started the witches of Dathomir in some other galaxy. Like Filoni, that might be a bridge too far for me.
But maybe he's looking for something that can end it. He's not necessarily going to the place where
like
it
maybe
started.
a super weapon that they built to kill, like a final kind of solution. To borrow the words of Adolf Hitler for the Jedi. And they're like, but obviously they're not using it. It's like a doomsday weapon, and he's going to throw the trick. That'd be interesting.
It could just be a stepping stone with the Dathomiri, right? It's not maybe they didn't start there, but he can use them as a jumping off point to find where it did start.
The second possibility, and this is I don't know why, but it's like I'm using the same kind of context clues. There's a lot of the idea that hyperspace travel started here.
Oh,
like is there something he could do to destroy hyperspace lanes? So like the whole galaxy is cut off and. Like, does he see like it's the galaxy spanning part of the problem? That's just a problem. I don't think that's the case, but I think it's an interesting. The final thing, the thing I think is the most likely is I think he wants to create essentially a Jedi kingdom, just like the witches of Dathomir had on this. But he wants a planet. Where it's just force people that he can shape into like a light sides bastion that's free from all the compromises that the Jedi had to do because they were the babysitters over a squabbling, fractious galaxy. He wants to start over with a new galaxy, a clean galaxy, one that's separate that can be left to be like this perfect utopian society. That's what I think is the most likely, especially since he's talking about like admiring the fact that this is the kingdom of the witches and look at what they built and what once was and what might be again. So which of those do you like? Any of those? Obviously, you like the first theory. It's yours.
Yeah, I'm really on the one where he's trying to actually destroy the Force itself. But I don't know. It could be. I'm curious to see.
Let me ask you
what
this
galaxy's like though, because they're like we've explored one planet in a galaxy and only a single site on that planet, right?
Right.
What is out there in this galaxy like that might prevent him from achieving his goals? He has no context here. So I'd like to see what he comes up against here.
The other thing I don't like about destruction of the Force is he talks about training Darth Grimes to be something more than a Jedi, which I don't know if that jibes with like the Force being destroyed.
Yeah, his opinion of the Jedi is that he likes their ideas, but they're weak, and they were doomed to fail for it.
They didn't go far enough, and I guess the protection of whatever purity or strength or moral authority they had. Because I don't think he's like, ha ha ha, I want to be evil. I think he bemoans the fact that the Jedi fell and caused all this, and he's looking for a way to like get the old Republic going in like a permanent golden age where you never have any more falls, no more battle between light and dark. But I don't know, because like the other old Star Wars belief is like that's impossible. Like the best you can ever hope for is that there to be balance. You're never going to take all the good or all the bad and make them ascendant. So
yeah, and he could just
might be a fool's errand.
Yeah, he could just be a fool.
Idealistic, damned fool, idealistic crusader.
Potentially. So I don't know. That part really intrigued me. Let's go back over to Sabine sitting in her cell trying to contact Ahsoka through the Force. She gives up and instead tries forcing the door open. Just then a Star Destroyer shows up and docks with the site. With as much pomp and circumstance as you can imagine, Thrawn reveals himself to them. Apparently, it's going to take 3 days to load the cargo. The witches tell him that Morgan brought a prisoner, Sabine, and he says she'll be of great use. Ooh, this is another big moment in the episode.
Yeah, this is the moment. Like him pulling up the Star Destroyer, the music. Yeah. We talked about, like, everybody called this out as a reference. This kintsugi way to both repair and beautify something. Like the Star Destroyer, you can tell like that was, ripped apart by space whales, and now it's been stitched together with some gold type material. The Stormtrooper's armor is being held with the honor guard with gold, but the others by these crimson lines where it's been fractured. And it's just, and then like I said, this is other than the unfortunate Musk resemblance, I think this is exactly the kind of Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's soft spoken, he's courteous, polite, proper. But there's also like a ruthlessness to him that you see towards the end of the episode. And also just like you get the idea that it's very hard to take him by surprise, because he's not going to tell himself unpleasant fictions and and flatter himself and buy into his own ego. In fact, it's like early on in the Heir to the Empire, there's like this great scene where everyone's waiting for Thrawn to kill, like in a very bad Imperial way, like some underling that's failed him, and he makes the point, is like, why would I ever do that? This person made a mistake and he's learned from it. He's a better person. Like it'd be ridiculous to kill this person. Then he turns to his supervisor and kills him because he should have trained him better. And this guy committed a sin out of ignorance. The other guy knowingly fucked up his job. So it's like, I don't know. I always thought Thrawn is great, and in just like the 5 or 10 minutes we get of him in this episode, it feels like this Skarsgård brother here is going to nail him.
Yeah, seems like it. Honestly, it's not what I expected Thrawn to look like, aside from the blue skin, red eyes.
What were you thinking?
I expected Thrawn to have more of a physical presence to him, like a jawline at least. Let's get a man with a jawline. He's very like contoured in a weird way, he does not look as threatening as I imagined he would.
I thought the uniform does a lot of work. I thought he looked
sure,
really good. And that's like an exceptionally well cut uniform, and he doesn't look physically imposing, but that's not his deal. He looks formidable, but like in a button down, calculating kind of way.
Yeah, in an intellectual way. And that could definitely work. It's just, on first sight, I was surprised. But I do like you mentioned his uniform. It's a little threadbare in some spots, because he's been out here for a while. Just it's still bright white. You could tell that he has not let down his guard as far as protecting his uniform, and he's doing the best he can with it. And then there's this Enoch character who is like, I guess, the leader of his troops here, wearing this mask with the golden face, evoking like ancient Roman era parade helmets, I guess. I don't know exactly what these are for, but I got they were more ceremonial than they were for actual battle.
It is kind of like very Roman, Greco-Roman, but it's also very
Japanese as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say East. It's very East Asian, or I guess, is that West Asian?
This particular face looks very Roman in its sculpting, as opposed to the Japanese armor like this used to look more monstrous, I'd say, more intimidating. Right. This is more regal and supposed to impress people, not scare people.
Yeah. It looks a lot like the Gladiator from the big the guy who wears a silver mask, Gladiator kind of look. But yeah, I thought it's such an arresting thing to see a stormtrooper with this golden face.
Yeah.
It's instantly recognizable as like this commander centurion unit, but also visually reads as a stormtrooper. And then, I mean, like that's the masterstroke of all this, is this like you look at it for 30 seconds and you get this whole thing. Like they'll later tell you about, we've been not resupplied for decades, and it's, our numbers are dwindled. It's been hard out there, but like everything about the visual design screams this exile running low on men and materials and morale. It's very cool.
And I've been trained, I guess, by I don't know, my own brain commentary, to see Ezra in every corner and every shadow, and I'm like, oh, Enoch is Ezra, you know. Of course, it's not.
It's funny because I wonder if I'd have come under that theory if they hadn't shown his face at the end. That's why you'd have to, right?
Right.
There's a couple things as far as the plot here. Any ideas of what cargo they're transferring from the crypts and catacombs of the Great Mothers into Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer? We later see that they're coffin-shaped, like cryopod-looking.
Yeah, I guess nothing that isn't inspired by potentially out-of-date spoilers.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the heir to the Empire tie? Because I kind of would like to, not maybe now, but maybe in between now and feedback, to talk about like what this might be.
Sure, because I'm curious about it. I don't recall the details of this stuff, but I definitely have an idea as to what those might be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would like to discuss it maybe here at the end.
Okay. We'll settle for that.
Cool.
Oh, also, what did you think about Thrawn's knowing look at Darth Swanson saying that you're not the first to part with the Jedi?
Is this in like the next half of the scene where Sabine is there, or this? Okay. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, I don't either. I just I wonder if this is because I never know if this is something teasing to come or this is a knowing nod to Rebels. Like a lot of times I get that. It's like, well, I know I'm supposed to pick it, but I'm not sure this is a wink to Rebels fans or this is like foreshadowing for something to come. Or, as it frequently is, sometimes both.
Yeah, totally.
But I noticed it.
All right, let's bring Sabine into the scene here. She's brought before Thrawn. He says he intends to honor Baylan's deal with her, then releases her, gives her supplies to go find Ezra. But she needs to get back before 3 days, otherwise she'll be stranded there. There's a little, back and forth between them, a little jabbing with words.
It just seems so ineffective because, Grand Admiral Thrawn is It reminded me of when you're trying to insult someone that's just too stupid to get it. He's like, okay. You threw away the entire galaxy on a selfish thing. She's like, yeah, something you could never understand. And he's just like, yeah, no, I don't. I would never, ever, ever do what you just did. I would never, ever hand my mortal enemies a decisive win for some purely personal concern. And I will never, you're right, Sabine, I will never understand what makes you tick. And her I gotcha. No, I don't think so. I don't think you were.
They value different things,
Yeah,
they have
trillions
very
of
different perspectives
power
on
over
matter.
Trillions of people's lives versus, oh man, when I think about this guy and him not being here, it's sad. And also, in the span of a human lifetime, he's going to die eventually. So I've mortgaged myself a few years of potential bliss with him in a galaxy in flames for said galaxy in flames. Yeah, I just if Sabine is not treated as one of the greatest traitors and monsters in the galaxy, she could be redeemed. Fucking Anakin was. But that's the level of betrayal we're talking about. Stomping up to the Jedi Order, murdering younglings, etc., etc. This is bad stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. I certainly agree. But from her perspective, she did get him, you have no personal connections to anyone. That's something she values deeply. And so it is an insult to say that he would never make that choice.
I don't know. That seems a little. He seems like he's perfectly friendly with Lady Morgan and the Great Mothers. He's got a full, rich life with Enoch and his fractured stormtroopers.
Oh, yeah. Him and Enoch knocking back beers.
Oh yeah,
they got sitting out there with the Purgles knocking back beers.
They got a Ted Lasso style Force Wolf Club where they talk about their relationships and Dave Filoni loves it. He really,
him and a howler are out there just.
100%.
Living 100%. It up between him, pressing his uniform and murdering his inferiors for mistakes.
Did you get screeners? How are you dropping these plot details from episode 8?
Is this hideous? Speaking of howlers, is this hideous beast that they give her better or worse than a direwolf in Game of Thrones? From a technical perspective.
I mean, okay. It seems as if they were identical. Like
Same here. I thought so.
Yeah, they're just a slightly more Dr. Seussian version of a direwolf.
A little blurry around the edges, just like a Game of Thrones direwolf. Little like
yes, you split the middle from a warg from Lord of the Rings and a direwolf and Game of Thrones, and you got a howler.
Yeah. So this next sequence, and I kind of grouped the howler stuff in here from like a separate scene, because I don't think they should have done as many cuts as they did. If I had one complaint about this episode, that's it. They cut back and forth too much, and it made the entire narrative on each side of the cuts feel a little disjointed or feel a little repetitive, I guess. Especially with the stuff around Thrawn and Morgan's concern about Sabine. It all felt like we were rehashing stuff over and over again.
And even shots like where the unleashing of Sabine and the unleashing of Darth Swanson and Grimes are kind of the same. So it's like maybe, and you got cut from that together, to right? Grand Admiral Thrawn, where he gets told exactly what we just saw, and it's like, well, you could just skip that scene. It's like, you know, my lord, totally. The mercenaries have been released, and then when Baylan shows up on her trail, yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
It's a little disjointed because of the cuts, but that's a minor complaint ultimately.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next part of the scene where Thrawn instructs Baylan and Shin to follow Sabine and destroy them both if she finds them. So we see that, Thrawn is not going to honor the deal. And I don't know if that bothers Baylan, because he also seems like he's not going to honor the deal over the course of this episode. It's just, he's not fine with like the callous way that he's doing this.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like this is all part of Baylan's deal too. So like, I don't understand why he's doing all this. Like, this is distasteful business. Or maybe, I mean, it might genuinely be distasteful. I don't understand, because what Thrawn says to me ultimately rings true. Like, especially, until they find out there's a Jedi riding in the mouth of a hyperspace capable whale at the end of the episode. But like, he makes this point several times. Like, look, whatever happens to Bean or Rin or Grimes or Swanson, I don't give a fuck. I'm out of this galaxy in 2.5 days, and these guys can stay here and play if they want. That seems like it's unclear to me why anyone's investing the time and effort to hunt down Sabine or Ezra. It seems like it's more... And I think everyone asked that. Like, people keep on saying, like, why the fuck did we bring these people? Why the fuck did you bring these people? Who are these people that you brought? And Baylan's always like, oh, they're going to be useful to us. They're going to be useful to us. Like, it has to be something that suits his end.
Baylan's
end. I'm having a hard time foreseeing how killing Sabine and Ezra would bring it into Force, hyperspace, or help start, unless he's going to keep a bunch of young Jedi, quasi-Jedi, captive for breeding purposes. To create his new perfect Jedi order, I don't understand how it all connects. But clearly it does.
Yeah, that's what I wonder is, Thrawn sends Baylan and Shin to destroy them, but I don't think that's necessarily Baylan's goal. I don't think he wants to destroy Ezra and Sabine.
It's not Thrawn's either. Thrawn,
well, he specifically tells him to, like, if he finds her, or if she finds Ezra, kill them both, there seems like a little bit of a personal vendetta here with Thrawn.
Oh, sure, like Thrawn would love to kill Ezra, because but
Baylan has different plans. I think he wants to use them more than kill him.
Thrawn would not slow down or stop on the highway to run Ezra over.
Sure,
but if he's in his lane, he absolutely would. Like, he might even swerve a bit, but he's not going to stop or divert to do it. Like, So like. Yeah, you're right. Like, it was given as if Baylan is the one who, or I'm sorry, the Thrawn is the one that wanted this all done. But like, Thrawn had no idea this side quest even existed when they showed up. So it's like, I thought it was weird because like the way he phrases, like you may follow, like it's almost like, yeah, I don't. This is your plan. I'm providing you with the mounts and stuff for my materials necessary to do it. But like it's more like he's acquiescing than ordering. But you thought it felt like more of an order than
it feels like the opportunity to get Ezra presented itself, and Thrawn took it, and he's giving over 2 squads of his guys, right? Yeah, it's not a ton of guys, but it's certainly resources he could use to get the hell out of here faster. So there is some element of like, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of speed here in order to get another thing I want, which is Ezra dead.
What evidence do you have that it's because like I got that where the part of the tension between him and Morgaine when she asked him to send more than 1 squads is like he is unwilling to commit anything to will sacrifice his greater objective. So like these are like it's 2 squads because I can spare that without slowing me down.
But he can't. I mean, if he had 2 more squads working, it would inevitably speed him up.
I guess
right?
2 more squads of stormtroopers, can carry that many coffins full of Night Sisters or whatever the fuck.
So he is sacrificing something. It's just a sacrifice he deems appropriate based on the goal of killing Ezra.
2 squads of stormtroopers to kill Ezra and settle the score. Yeah,
but no more, right? Because then I would be sacrificing too much speed for my taste.
What I thought is interesting, even more than Darth Swanson, is Darth Grimes seems bothered by this. Do you think she sees this as the first time she sees her master as being anything more less than noble? Do you think that she finds like she really wants to beat Sabine, but she wants to do it like? And I don't know, because like I can't really reconcile maybe her being disappointed in her master being like duplicitous. Like she didn't understand her master of dragging this girl to this and helping her on her quest, but like she's like, well, okay. And now that he's kind of like reneging in the spirit of it's like bothers her.
It's possible. I don't know why she would be so worried about this, because in my mind she's a little bit jealous that Sabine has not been killed already. And that maybe he's like Baylan's sort of taking her under his wing in a strange way, and so she should want to kill Sabine quickly.
I'm wondering if this is what I hope is not true, but it could be, and I'd understand if it was. I wonder if some of these like reactions are from a part of the production before Rey died. And that they had to make some changes to the end to kind of like since there were a little bit more threads of stuff, but they couldn't do that anymore, so they had to wrap. Because like, or it could be that they're just like there is going to be perfectly legitimate and understandable explanation for all this. We just haven't got to that yet. But if there is a little bit of messiness in the storyline, I'd be inclined to believe, behind the scenes production problems caused by a main character dying unexpectedly. And like, shit, what can we do with the stuff we've got here in the editing bay to kind of like clean this up? And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see if any of the misgivings that seems like these not Jedi have about working with the shitbags they're working with are going to bear fruit.
All right, let's go to Sabine, who's out in the wilderness. She's attacked by bandits, and her howler runs off, abandons her. And she manages to defeat her attackers anyway. Okay, I said I had 1 problem with the episode, 1 minor complaint. I have 2.
Oh.
And this becomes a major complaint at some point. Random jabronis in another galaxy have cobbled together. They're bandits. They're cobbled together armor, cobbled together weaponry, able to block a lightsaber. Did we just happen to stumble onto a planet with a bunch of Beskar?
Wait, when did they block? Because I just saw her cutting through their shit. Their armor, their staff.
At the end, she cuts through a staff, but it definitely blocks a couple of blows, too.
Huh.
I was looking for this specifically because I couldn't believe what I saw.
Well, you see, Jim,
I don't
the
get
witches
it.
of Dathomir long battled the Jedi, and there's a naturally occurring mineral that is on this planet, and it's super dense, and its molecular structure disrupts the plasma blade as it passes, and it's not completely proof, but it's like, wearing asbestos underwear in a fire. It's just going to help you out a little bit.
Sure.
That's a Wookiepedia article, probably.
It just blows my mind how depowered the coolest part of Star Wars, the lightsaber, has become. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a fucking joke.
Blame all the
hate
video games, I think, because if you had a video game where you actually had a realistic Jedi Master, it just like it would be some kind of insane psychopath simulator. Hey, we talked about Rebel scanners with Hera. You can tell this ain't no Rebel scanner, because if it was a Rebel scanner, it would be 3 times bigger. Its battery would last as long, and it would have survived being cut in half. You duct tape that shit back together, and it will fucking scan. This is Imperial tech.
Yeah, it's small but delicate. It's not massive and rugged.
I want to actually, because I'm a lightsaber guy. I kind of admire the fighting style of Sabine. I really like this kind of blended Mandalorian physicality, blasters and lightsaber, and her having to like go to the lightsaber because she was overmatched with the blasters. And I know we talked about this in the Mandalorian. It is not cool when people wearing Beskar constantly take otherwise fatal hits to their Beskar armor. Like, it really is not cool, guys. Like, maybe once or twice a season it can save the day, but like I just think it's super stupid to watch these guys, like a hero, just tank all these short range blaster shots and I don't know, do the Wonder Woman bracelet deflection thing. I just wish they'd tone that down. And again, it's a problem on the Mandalorian too.
Well, these bandits, the focusing lenses on their blasters are slightly detuned from years of hard living on this planet.
Really?
Yeah, Wookiepedia article number 2.
Some kind of crystal, probably, that is powered by Tabana gas. And it's just like, their Tabana gas a little weak.
Yeah, your Tabana gas cylinder gets low on your blaster, and you got to swap it out, but you can't do it mid-fight.
I actually saw that Wookiepedia article. I think it had a Legends tag, but what do you know? What can you do?
Yeah. Okay, let's move over to Baylan and Shin again. They right after Sabine, and then Morgan wants to send everything Thrawn's got after Sabine and possibly Ezra if they find him. But Thrawn only sends 2 squads because they need the rest to load the cargo. And, we talked about how the editing makes this a little weird, but I understand his concern here. He wants to get out of here as fast as possible, but there's a hint of the personal in here too. Like,
well, I'm talking about speaking
this
of the
fucker
hint
who stranded me here.
With the hint of the personal, what about Lady Morgan here? Do you think she cares one way or another
about getting Ezra?
Because she's got a certain look on her face about Thrawn's lack of committing or whatnot, and it seems like I couldn't tell if she's like. I don't know which read is correct. Does she hate Baylan and is only using him reluctantly to achieve her goals? Does she admire Baylan and is chagrined that they're potentially going to get him killed by not giving him enough support? How do you feel like she feels? Because it seems like
it was more about Sabine. Like, once the Dathomiri said, hey, she's important, she's dangerous, she's got the stink of the Jedi on her, that's maybe Morgan took that to heart and said, we have to destroy Sabine, but Thrawn had already released her.
Yeah, I felt like there's the great mothers who just fucking hate Jedi and distrust them and don't like them at all, and Thrawn's that same way too, because he doesn't care much for Jedi. And then you've got obviously the Jedi and the not quite Jedi, the former Jedi, but she seems like somewhere in the middle. She's not as hardline.
Yeah.
as the Great Mothers, but then the Great Mothers say she's a credit to Dathomir. So I don't know. I just there was a couple, like I said with the Darth Grimes and with some of these other characters, Darth Swanson. I'm just not quite sure emotionally where they're at with what's going on.
Maybe she's just a main character with nothing to do at the moment. And so you throw a scene in here with something for her to say. Because, her goal is accomplished. She found Thrawn. They're on their way back. Like, she has nothing to do now.
Yeah. In fact, even the Great Mothers essentially are, anytime Grand Admiral asks them something, they're like, destiny fates us to serve you, Grand Admiral. And it's like, well, you guys are entirely just add-on functionaries to Thrawn at this point. You're right. They've passed the plot narrative, so there's a bunch of powerful characters that no longer have anything to do other than die or, I don't know, take a minor role as a big bad in the spinoff.
Sure. I do wonder if Thrawn's going to take any witches with him. Witches might come in handy. If he goes back to the galaxy we know, that might be handy.
Oh, yeah, they burn well. You can...
Sure,
you get when
he's knocking back beers with the Purgles, you need a fire going, right?
Yeah, you get 20-30 light years per witch at the rate they burn in the reactor. They're just really good that way.
I don't know. We'll see what comes of Morgan, I guess, because I don't know where she goes from here. Sabina's pissed at the Howler for running during the fight, and she tries to send it back where it came from, but it follows her until she gives another chance. Then the Howler picks up a scent, and they ride off toward it. And it leads them to a creature disguised as a rock. And that creature recognizes her Mandalorian symbol and shows her its matching necklace. She asks if they know Ezra, and they start leading her somewhere.
To me, this scene is the price you pay to get family Star Wars entertainment, and I'll happily pay it. This is not offensive. It's cute. It's well designed.
It's pretty long.
It is a little long, but this is the thing. Yeah, this is what the 5 and 6 year olds really like.
I suppose. I was getting a little foot tappy in the scene.
As an owner-operator of one 10 years ago, I'm telling you, that shit, where the adults call out, the fact that this alien's trying to hide in the exact same way twice. That trick ain't gonna work. They eat that shit up. They love that shit.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, that was me 3 years ago, and I didn't understand object permanence, a fucking idiot. And they're like,
Also blaming your Howler for abandoning you. That's probably fun.
Right, yeah. It's like when
and
you blame your kid, sister, or brother for doing some shit. And yeah, it's like I said, I thought it was cute. I actually like these hermit crab people. I think they're pretty cool. I don't know if I'm long term going to be enamored with them. I don't know if they're going to that's the other thing. Every time I see something like this, I'm like, oh God, how am I going to feel about dozens of these taking down stormtroopers? Because inevitably that's the fate of young quasi-animal sidekick species in this universe.
I want them to be like Gremlins, where they have this dark side. It comes out at night or whatever,
Yeah, 8 of them swarm. They pop up the ground, swarm a stormtrooper, and just tear them apart.
And then they part, and it's just bones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all the shells just cover and just scream, and just empty, bloody shells spill out from the pile. And they're still at the super cute. You give a thumbs up, blood dripping from their scalera or their pedipalps. Give a thumbs up.
That doesn't sound like Disney to me. But
no.
What do I know?
Yeah, but it's pretty. It's fine. It's fine.
My only complaint is it's a little long, but whatever.
Yeah, especially that's the other thing about it's really belabored. Filoni must really like the species he's created, because if this is a little long, her long trail through their encampment, when at the end it's going to be Ezra, I felt that one was a super oh my God, already.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. Imagine in Return of the Jedi if there was a 5-minute scene of Luke and Han going into the Ewok camp, looking at the Ewoks raising their children, and they're cooking on a fire, and they're weaving their nets there, and they're building some traps, and they're doing, and then you finally, after that, Princess Leia comes up and says, "Oh, yay, what's up? Took you long enough."
They do that. It's just 30 seconds instead of...
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Like, we already know what's happening here. And it's like, there's no reason for us to feel this affection for these creatures and to get this. They're just really slow blowing you on the Ezra reveal. And if you're a Rebel fan, maybe that type of extended blowing is appreciated and warranted. But me, I'm just like, yes, I get it. This is Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Bring his Toon looking ass out. Let me see it.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to Baylan and Shin real quick. They reach the spot where Sabine killed the bandits. Shin asks if Baylan misses the Jedi Order. Some parts of it, at least the idea of it. And he says something here calls to him, though, and the Jedi were weak. That's the part he doesn't miss. More bandits arrive, and they plan to befriend them, I guess. I don't know.
They're the Noti. The subtitles let me know that they're the Noti. They're not identified by name at any point in the episode, but
I like to call them the Naughty.
The Naughty. They actually might be again, since and it's like, is that what they call themselves?
Probably. Although they have clicks and hums and stuff for their language.
Pretty humany sound and speech from crab people, I would say, though. I was expecting a lot more wet clicks and chitterings and vibrations and hissing and striations from a crab people, but they're essentially Ewoks. They speak like Ewok.
I like the materials they're made of. It seems like there's some kind of iridescent, like mollusk-esque kind of quality to them.
The whole look and feel of these people reminded me a lot of like the Harfoots, the proto-hobbits on the Amazon Rings of Power series. They've got these. They're very secretive. Their whole deal is they hide out of sight from larger threats. So
they roam. They don't stay in one place very long.
Yeah. There's a lot of cross-cultural pollination going on in science fiction fantasy right now.
We've already talked about these rock creatures. Let's talk about Baylan and Shin. What did you think of this scene?
Baylan and Shin. What I think
he's talking about the Jedi Order and what's good about it, what's bad about it. What does he mean when he says he likes the idea of it? Because he also says he doesn't like the weakness that they portrayed.
I think he likes the idea of paragons of justice and goodness defending the galaxy, and he thinks the weakness was the Jedi's inability to protect themselves from is he one of those like they respected democracy too much, like like they saw this weirdo taking over and instituting martial law and building up an army, and they uncritically went along with it even though they had misgivings. And if they I think that he's a woulda coulda shoulda Jedi, that like if only he were the master in charge of the Order, he would have been smart enough to see through that, and he would have arrested the right people. And the idea but I don't know, he also says he's a student of history, so maybe he's got a systemic critiques, and that's like he wants to institute a perfect society. But you know what? Not a good history of that. If he's a student of history, not a great track record for people intentionally trying to generate and create a utopia. So that's why I lean really heavy on him wanting to start like his perfect society, because he's talking about it's like, well, I never saw a future with the Jedi. I knew it was inevitable they'd collapse. And she's like, when you see one here, and he's like, what I saw once is the once great witch kingdom of Dathomir. And the other thing about fleeing a power greater than my own, there's something called like I got so many ideas, but they're again, it's all filtered through 30-year-old memories of reading Heir to the Empire. So we probably need the wait on that one too till we get to the little spoiler section we're gonna have.
Okay, we do that. He talks about what kind of Jedi Ezra is. He's a Boken Jedi.
Boken,
essentially ones that are trained just kind of willy-nilly after the Jedi Temple fell. He's one of the new breed of Jedi. I thought that was interesting.
It's a neat little piece of world building. Apparently, it's created new from the show, and it's Filoni seems to be doing this a lot, taking real life words from like Japanese culture. Boken is a wooden training sword, and he's like, there's this he's the same way that you might say a knight is a hedge knight in Game of Thrones. Like, oh, he's a knight. He got knighted once, but he's got no lord or master, no lands. You know, he's a hedge knight because he sleeps under a hedge on the side of the road rather than in a castle like a proper knight should. And him kind of like, you know, Jedi Knights are trained at the Jedi Temple, and they had real practice laser swords, and they had droids, and they had this and that, and these like hedge knights with their wooden swords. And we saw Sabine being trained with one of those Boken wooden swords. So it's like, I thought it was nice. Like, he's dismissively talking about all these. Like, Luke Skywalker would be a Boken Jedi, right?
Technically, yeah. He was not trained under any organization.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's neat him disparaging someone like the We Know has got this huge impact. I mean, he's the one to overthrow the Galactic Empire, and he's disparaging them. But it's also interesting about what he's trying to do with Darth Grimes, make her something greater than a Jedi. What's that?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what he's thinking, because if a Sith tells me that, I'm thinking, well, he just wants to make you a Sith. But, like, I don't know I don't know how to label this guy. We'll see if we get there by the end of the season. So Sabine is taken to the rock creature camp, the Nodi camp, where she's reunited with Ezra. He asks how she found it, but she says, we'll talk about that later. Then he says he can't wait to go home. She says, we'll talk about that later.
Dude, I mean, that's the delicious part of the scene, is like, as happy as you are to see these people reunited, it's, you know, it's like not overly demonstrative, but like it felt right from what I understand of their characters, and then they embrace and they're very happy. But like, yeah, honestly, he's got all these questions and she can't give him a single satisfying answer because she knows this is a bad idea. She like I feel like I already know what he's going to say. Like, what the fuck? I was willing to kill myself to take this guy out of the galaxy, and you brought him back. And now we're together, but we can't go home. We can't see any of our friends. Like, this was literally for you. No one else. None of our other friends. None of the people I left at home. None of the people in Loth. Like, it's literally just, I don't, like, it's got to be a big, massive breach in their relationship.
Yeah. And I think that's compelling and interesting. I think, you know, for all the stuff that we've been pointing at Sabine and saying, God, I can't believe she's like this. This is a huge mistake. I think the show is about to bring that back around right now. Yeah, I do too. I have faith. The person whose opinion she values the most is going to tell her she was wrong to do it. Like, Ahsoka can say that all day, and she's just going to ignore her. But for Ezra to say it to her face after she saved him and say it wasn't worth it, and in fact, this is not something you did that makes me proud. It's dishonoring the sacrifice that I had come to terms with, the sacrifice I had made. It's there's no other way this goes, you know. And
the fact that she's stranded on a planet that's steeped in the dark side, like, I think there's a lot of things that are pointing to at least a short-term kind of heel turn for Sabine here.
Yeah, and I think it could result in some character growth, which I hope. You know, maybe not be so single-minded about things, maybe to take a more holistic approach and perspective.
It also fits in so well with Ahsoka's character, if you want to go with the Star Wars kind of rhyming, lyrical nature of its storytelling, is that, you know, Ahsoka, who was raised by this master who fell to the dark side, was later redeemed. She is raised, you know, trying to train her Padawan, falls to the dark side, needs to be redeemed. Like, the fact that she's like the bridge of redemption on both sides of this, and Anakin saying there might be hope for you. Like, it seems like there's a lot preparing her for this. And I know that also, I actually know too much to properly enjoy this. I know that, like, Filoni's got a whole arc of Mando that's going to lead up to, I think, either a trilogy of movies or a Thrawn movie. So it's like they're, you know, and these would all be excellent hooks to lay that on. Some kind of resurgent, neutral Jedi Order, Sabine as this powerful dark side user that finally gets access to the Force through her giving in to her anger and it's all going to be fueled by her friend's rejection of her sacrifice and the weight of. I mean, it sounds cool, honestly, as I'm saying it.
Sure.
So but I imagine there's a lot of like Rebel fans like covering their ears, but oh no, not because like it'd be like Luke Skywalker having a dark side stint,
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun to think about.
There are probably a lot of people watching the prequels for the first time going, no, Annie, why are you doing this? Right?
True.
But yeah, in the larger arc, it's very satisfying. And then the Great Mothers call Thrawn to say that Ahsoka is on the way. And Thrawn demands to know everything about Ahsoka and tells Morgan to destroy any approaching star whales with prejudice. And he seems to be shitting all over Baylan here. He was once a Jedi. We must regard him as flawed. It's interesting.
That's the other thing that they never, like as an adult, thinking about Thrawn, sometimes it comes across Zahn's work as, one of those things where like, a little bit about tactics. It can be dangerous and strategy because it's like, if Thrawn's whole big deal is he won't ever discount a threat until he's personally assured that it's not a threat or whatever. That's another way of saying someone's going to be paralyzed by indecision.
Mm-hmm.
Because how can
Paranoia.
you rule out like there's a fair amount of like especially tactics and it's about daring. Like I think I have a material advantage here. The intel is sketchy, but I just like this is, and people to wait until their certainty are going to. But like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He's right, and he's always going to be right because he's written by the writers to be. I just wonder how do you properly prepare for a Jedi,
I don't really know. You get some Force users on your side, I suppose, to fight them when they do show up.
She already has. Yeah, I'm curious to see.
But I don't know if he's on, because that's the thing about his comment here about Baylan. He was once a Jedi. He's flawed. I don't think he trusts Baylan to be that guy. Like if Jedis did show up to try and defeat him, I don't know that he thinks Baylan has his back.
That's what I'm saying. I think the unspoken thing here is that there's a non-zero chance in Thrawn's mind that Baylan's in on all this.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
That like, but
or
also
at the very least, he's not to be trusted.
Right. But how do you 100% uncritically trust the witches of Dathomir, right?
Sure. Uh-huh.
I mean, just because they're saying the threat of destiny demands it, Grand Admiral, like, yeah, they want off of this planet. They want off this planet real bad.
From a certain point of view, the threat of destiny demands it.
They're willing to blow a lot of blue sunshine up your ass, Thrawn, but I don't know. Maybe with Enoch, he has a conversation where he doesn't trust anybody, but
yeah, potentially.
Yeah, and the death and resurrection of games played by both Witch and Jedi, very true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it feels like there's 4 or 5 episodes left of plot, and they only have 2. So I'm wondering if they have a way to bring this particular storyline to a really satisfying conclusion. If this is going to feel like a Dune Part 1 situation where you're really just waiting for Mandalorian to tell the rest of the story, and
That's the thing. This hasn't really felt like, with the exception of last episode, I don't feel like this has felt like an Ahsoka show. It's felt like a Sabine show,
Fair.
much more so. I don't know what's going to happen with the trilogy of movies that they supposedly want to do centered around Thrawn. Like, how do you tell a story that goes on from here that doesn't get delayed by waiting for 3 fucking movies, And is Ahsoka next season just going to be like, well, we dealt with the Sabine and Thrawn stuff, now let's have Ahsoka go do other things? And then they're going to hold all that stuff for the trilogy? These are the same questions we were asking about The Mandalorian. And we know how that turned out. It was kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't trust him to thread this stuff logically or interestingly.
Yeah, and I'm trying to compare this to like what Marvel did on the Thanos side. And it's like Thanos was teased for a long time before he actually, you know, and you got the Infinity Stones. But like once they got the like Thanos, like when Thanos came, that was like the thing that they dealt with until it was over, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like if they do that, like okay, yeah, you could have a 4 or 5 series movie build up to the thing that you actually want to say, but like they've already revealed Thrawn in too big of a way.
Yeah.
Like, I will not accept him returning to the Star Wars galaxy and just chilling for a couple of movies in the background. Although maybe they will be good, you know, like he'll be back, but the New Republic will be like, oh, he's just one admiral with one Star Destroyer. How big of a threat could he be? And they just like let him fester into the galaxy and they don't take it seriously.
Consolidating power,
Starts consolidating. So, okay, I've just talked myself into it. They could totally do that. And you just get like these.
But they've done too much on the. I feel like they've done too much in that regard too, because a lot of these series have been about the power already consolidated, just waiting for him to return. So like,
yeah, I don't know. So maybe they, like I said, they're going to be ready for this. Because I want to correct myself. I haven't heard a trilogy of movies. I've heard that this will finish in one theatrical release.
Oh, okay, that sounds a lot easier.
It'll
to pull
culminate.
Off.
Yeah, but I don't know how many series it's going to worm its way through either. Whether it's going to be, you know, touched on a Mandalorian, another season of Ahsoka, and then like I said, this is set up to be pretty compelling, pretty accurate to my understanding of Thrawn. I am willing to see how this season plays out, and assuming that they don't completely shit the bed, which I find very unlikely at this point, I will be in for following this plot wherever it goes to as many seasons of television I have to watch.
Gotcha.
And that's the thing. Yeah. I guess if they're going to maybe now they got their shit together and they're going to force me to watch Star Wars, as long as it's good, as long as it's this good, as long as it never gets worse than The Mandalorian, I think I'll be fine with that. And I'm engaged with the storyline.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I'll still be a lot more in the mode of like an Andor for sure. I think this stuff is okay. It's just not my cup of tea, especially when like Ahsoka's been fairly good. I would say with like the exception of one episode, maybe
the third episode
Ahsoka's been pretty solid.
And the third episode is like this episode without Thrawn. You know, it's like kind of like this set, you know, transitioning to the next storyline, getting everything, you know, getting everybody on the same piece of the board. So I'm with you. Like, I think this would be kind of fine, like baseline Mandalorian fine. But I think episodes 4 and 5 elevated it. And if 7 and 8 pay off, like we had a slow kind of ho hum third that set up the 4 or 5. If 6 does the same thing for 7, 8, and like we could be in for a real damn treat, man. Yeah,
we'll see. I do hope
you are wise to not lower your defenses. I get it. I get it. But I'm gonna put my heart a little bit on my sleeve. I'm rooting for the show at this point.
Yeah. If Filoni slays me, I'm not coming back as a Force ghost this time. As a Star Wars ghost, I'm done. I'm done. Sorry.
Can't do it.
Fool me once with the prequels, shame on you. Fool me twice with whatever they're doing here.
Only so many times these kids can summon you back to the swamps of Dagobah to sit on a log and talk to them about their Star Wars canon. You're just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. Don't summon me unless you want that pain.
And they were really right on that border, man, between like Obi-Wan, which Obi-Wan I didn't even watch because
Andor completely fucking turned it around.
It's the only thing that brought me back. Like Mandalorian season 2 wasn't enough to do it, and the Book of Boba Fett just shit on my love for Star Wars. And then there was Obi-Wan, but then Andor, and I'm like, yes, Star Wars can be good.
My last flicker of Star Wars fanboy was guttering out, and then and it was like looking pretty bad starting episode 3 of Andor even because.
Oh, I know you didn't like the early goings,
man.
but
I didn't.
And I understand why not. But I was hooked right away with that show.
I need to go back and rewatch the first couple because, like, you know, I was antagonistic.
I was stuff. Going. I think you're right. It's too much.
I'll admit it. I was fucking around on my cell phone. I was in there. Like, I don't want to watch this.
Fair.
I want to watch 3 episodes, go on OTC, and say this is another bullshit, mediocre Star Wars, and I'm well shot of it. But instead, at the end of 3, I said, Jim, at the win at the gym, I'm like, Jim.
Yeah.
Just when I thought I was out, They dragged me back
and
in.
I wasn't going to watch it until I heard the reviews come in, and everybody was saying it was amazing, right? So, yeah, they need to continue that streak. They need to do stuff that is as good as the best of Mandalorian, the best of Ahsoka, and Andor, and they can keep me on this line.
If they want the cranky old Star Wars folks part of the movement. I mean,
Still
they don't have to do
man.
this shit.
I hope I'm going to be around for another 40 years. They can milk me. Milk me.
Yeah.
I want to be milked, so let's do this. I just got to be milked right, gently.
Yeah, they can milk him in a nursing home if they play their cards right. The milk going to dry up if they start to try to squeeze too hard. Just like Princess Leia said, the harder you squeeze the Star Wars fans' teeth, the less milk slips between your fingers. That's a Dave Filoni's. That's a Dave Filoni Princess Leia quote, I believe. The exact quote.
All right, man. Do you want to talk about the Silmarillion or whatever the fuck they're called?
We got people in here in our feedback that want to. StarWars@baldmove.com is how you join Fight Club. Zach's up first. It says, I am not familiar with the EU canon/non-canon material. I wonder if there's an example of a Jedi who was not connected to the Republic. From what I've seen, the Jedi are either Republic, Space Cops, Sith, or dead. Since it's a religion, I wondered if there were examples of what Jedi were before. Dude.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing. I do not know of a conception of the Star Wars galaxy that does not have the Jedi in it. I actually looked because they go back all the way 10,000 years to the Old Republic, to the legendary era. The Jedi were there, and it's worse than I even thought. And according to, I think these are Star Wars legends. These have not been brought into the continuity, but in the Star Wars legends, there was an ancient people called the Jedi, which is Jedi with an extra apostrophe in the middle of it and 3 eyes instead of 1. And they lived on this planet that 35,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, before the Old Republic, the Jedi lived on this planet, which had 2 natural moons. One was perpetually showing its light side to the planet, and one which was tidally locked to show its dark side to the planet. And these people came to appreciate the Force through that entire dynamic. They invented the light side and dark side dichotomy because of their cosmology. And as they advanced, they did things like they saw this balance of the Force, like the Jedi would go on to do. And apparently, when their adherents would get too imbalanced, either towards the light or the dark, they would exile them on their respective moons for them to be isolated and meditate so they can get back into balance. So if there is a better answer than that of what was before the Jedi, I don't know, because as far as I can tell, the Jedi have always been in this galaxy, and their civil war that kind of split a faction of the Jedi off, that when it became the Galactic Jedi, they're just an offshoot of that religion. So it's it seems like in the Star Wars mythos, it's Jedi all the way down. Now, there are lots of other Force-using traditions. You've got the Keldor Barando sages, where they eschewed using the Force for combat. They would just use it to meditate on their people's future, to guide them through correct decision-making processes. And they were used as seers and sages. There's the Ang-Ti monks, who rejected the Force having a light side dichotomy and viewed it as a spectrum, a full rainbow spectrum that individuals should exhibit. But I don't know. These are all the majority of these are all kind of fleshed out in the comic books or obscure novel, and
probably don't apply anymore.
But it's the idea of it's Star Wars is very universalist. What do they call the universal universe? What is that the branch of religion? Unitarian Universalists. Mm-hmm. In that you can worship it in very many ways, but everything at the end is the Force. I even read an article this morning to explain the Ewoks, witch doctor guy, Logray. That he was that's he didn't know it, but he's in all the powers that he was actually low key using the Force. So all the did you catch the Dathomir's magic? They're not Force users. They use magic. with a K. It's all Force. So Dave says, I thought you'd appreciate this YouTube clip of Mark Hamill complaining about some of the dialogue George Lucas expected him to say in the original Star Wars film. Mark comment at the end is priceless. This is an old Johnny Carson interview from the late 70s, and I thought if our producer is kind, we could just drop this clip in here. This is a clip of him. He's just a short clip of him giving this line of dialogue that he got George Lucas to the drop about. He says, but we can't turn back now. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aqualish or Sullish, and what there is most likely directed toward large-scale assaults. And it's just like him joking about how you can't say that shit.
Yeah, I thought he had a particularly devastating quote at the end. Like, his description of the dialogue was devastating. Like, it's world ending or something. Or, like...
He in this particular quote, he said, like, come on, George, we're the ones that are going to get rotten vegetables thrown at us. Like, this dialogue's so bad that they're going to go down as, like, these infamously bad actors. I think Harrison Ford is the one that says, George, you can write this shit, but you can't say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is... And especially with his direction being faster, more intense, like, you can even hear in that clip, like, if you go much faster, Aqualish and Sullish start to run together, and it's just Aqualish, and that's no good. So, this is a well-known problem that George has had for a long time. Like, experienced directors go in and be like, okay, whatever, I'm going to do whatever, and that's how you get just amazing things out of Alec Guinness. And Jesus, who's the guy who's Grand Moff Tarkin?
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing. Wait, is that true? I thought Peter Cushing. No, Peter Mayhew is Chewbacca. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you'll get the veteran actors that just kind of like, okay, I get what this material's going for, and I need to be this particular archetype. But the young talent seems to get just kind of twist in the wind.
You're going to tell the director no when he tells you that sand is coarse and it gets everywhere? You're not going to tell him no. And
see, that's the thing. Is like, so Mark Hamill's talking about, like, they used to push back. They got this line taken out of the film because it was so bad. Like, George used to respond to people's, like, he used to call on and have people help him. Like, there's, like Star Wars is largely conceived as being saved into editing. That, like, what George actually came up with was such a mess, and he had a couple of really talented editors, including one of his former wives, that kind of like saved it in the editing bay. So, like I said, you can say a lot of things about George Lucas. Really technically oriented, really has an eye for a shot and composition, hugely inventive in terms of world building, and like coming up with like just insane, like really ingenious concepts like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. But actually meat and potatoes directing living flesh and blood actors through lines and dialogue and sets, not so much. Move on. Ethan says, I am indeed one of those younger Star Wars fans who grew up in the Clone Wars and have two quick things. I am shocked, just shocked, that people are pressuring you to watch all of the Clone Wars. Any real Clone Wars fans will admit to you that they do not need to see the whole show to understand or enjoy it. It's an anthology show with completely disconnected episodes in terms of both storylines and chronology. As a fan, there's probably a good season or two worth of episodes that I haven't even seen. I appreciate a young guy like you, Ethan, releasing us from the burden of having to watch the Clone Wars and the Rebels. It's so appreciated.
Yeah. Come on. Pull up a chair on the lawn. Crack open a beer next to the Purgle.
He continues, here's my proposition that's a middle ground. God damn it. He had us in the first half. Here's his one weird trick to invest 10 hours into the Clone Wars and Rebels that will completely change our mind about the material. I don't know about this. So some lawful evil behavior, Ethan. Some real Darth Swanson tactics. No, he's just like, there's like, 3 or 4 little... And then here's the thing. I don't know if you recall this, but I actually did invest in time to watch a 4-episode mini arc, like at the very beginning of the Mandalorian experience. And I was chagrined to find out that it was 2.5 hours of cartoons that were barely relevant. Like 4 or 5 sentences relevant to the thing that I was watching. And I'm like, never again. So... No, I don't want to do. I did watch a 30-minute primer on the Dave Filoni universe, which I found kind of helpful. Helpful to make better jokes about the material. I don't think it's actually but anyway, so secondly, I don't know if you've already talked about this before, but for me, what I think is diluting these Star Wars stories is an attempt to turn these shows into their own version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe of interconnected stories.
Yep.
I think it's absurd the storylines of one show resolve in a different show, or that as fans, one should be required to watch a 4-season cartoon to understand the latest live-action series. This method most certainly leads to faster burnout and quantity over quality level of storytelling. One of the reasons Andor rules as much as it did is because it didn't have this burden of having to connect the stories between 5 different shows, movies, books, and games. Curious to hear your thoughts on this issue of studios trying to use the Marvel Universe method with every franchise now. Thanks.
Yeah, the MCU itself is too much. And now everything is going to be that? That's insane. Disney's model worked until it didn't work, and they tried to push it too far with the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, like, the cool thing about Marvel is that this is a universe that was conceived of having all these heroes having their individual adventures that would once in a while come together for a giant size issue or a summer crossover event or something like that. So you've got built in like all these independent narratives, or like what Doctor Strange doesn't impact what Spider-Man does, but every once in a while they'll work to get right. Whereas this is like every fucking thing has to be set within 10 years of the Battle of fucking Yavin. Like, and I'm not the only one. So can we not, like we just talked about 10,000 years ago, the Knights of the Old Republic. Can we not just like jump back 1,000 years into the past and just tell a Star Wars story about Jedi Knights that we don't know and a Sith threat that we don't understand and weird alien can we not do that? Or can we not get like 1,000 years in the future? And here's an idea: fuck the Jedi, fuck the Sith. Let's look at the bounty hunters. Let's look at the Grand Army of the Republic. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much room for storytelling, and they try to fit all these stories in this itty bitty little section, and they do it well. It succeeds in making the galaxy look so fucking small, right? Like, it's not inconceivable. It's not inconceivable that Peter Parker would run into Captain America. They operate on the same fucking planet. It is wild that Darth Vader built C-3PO and that Yoda was best friends with Chewbacca.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It does make everything feel very small. But I guess that's less of a complaint. I have a complaint more with the model itself, not the setting. I think you could tell. I mean, like, how much time do you think spans a lot of these Marvel movies? I mean, if you take out like a Thor or something where you're going to different universes or whatever, you could see all this happening in 10 years, right? It's not.
Yeah, I think you. Yeah, it's kind of runs in real time.
So like they could tell a bunch of different interesting stories in a 10-year span if they really wanted to. The thing that bothers me is the model. It's the oversaturation of it, putting out too much stuff and just tiring out the fan. The feeling that if I miss any of it, I'm doomed to not understand the rest of it. And that's the thing that kills me. It's the stupid thing they did with Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. Just the callousness that shows. Or the cynicism, right? Like, we're going to throw all this out there. We're going to make you watch it all so that we can get our numbers up. So that we can make more money. And that's clear. That's all it is to them, right? It doesn't have any of the special relationship with Star Wars that fans have had over the years. It's been a lot of people's lives, and Disney is just treating it as another way to make an enormous profit.
And doing it out in the, like,
that's what they do.
And out in the open, like when every time they have these like Star Wars roadmaps that they unveil to the fans, that like, it feels like, oh, this is the ATM machine that's going to be printing money for the next 2 years, right? And like I feel like as a fan, it kind of turns me off when it's like, it's like not like we are excited to tell these. It's more of like, here is the next slop that's going to be coming down the pike.
Here's the next thing that's going to make us $1 billion, and they've been chastised on this, right? Look at the movie state of Star Wars. Fans have said, your approach sucks and we don't want any part of it. And they stopped making fucking Star Wars movies. They stopped because they had a plan, man. They were going to do this until the end of time. And it turns out the end of time was just like 3 movies in.
Right. Because they had no plan. They had the plan to print the money, but they had no idea of why we would want to give them our money, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's Star Wars. We paid $2 billion. It's going to make us, $2 billion a year in perpetuity, and they just didn't do it.
And I think forcing me to watch one show so that I can understand another show is not a blueprint to make money either. Trust me.
And if you listen to our coverage of this, like we laid all this out of like, like even the hardcore fans are not going to be able to like every fucking week there's 1 or sometimes 2.5 hours of Marvel shit to watch, and then it's like, man, like, and the other thing is like Disney knows that not everyone's going to watch those things, so like they have to be sidecars to the movie. They can never be the main event. If the movies touch on them, they have to explain it well enough for the and it's like Marvel's even starting to have trouble with that. The other thing
and turning creativity into a factory, I think is a mistake.
Well,
it's doomed to failure. Like you cannot mechanize people's creativity. It needs to be inspiration.
Though. The sad thing is, I think you can, because that's been Walt Disney's entire fucking career is to chain up talented animators that have brilliant visions and just have them crank out assembly line whimsy for years and years and years. Like that's what the theme park, like it's all kind of running out again, or maybe it's all just like no one can afford this shit anymore. No one can afford Disney vacations and buying all Star Wars merch.
They've hit a point of saturation with everything, and they're trying to still step on the gas, and I feel like it's a mistake.
The other thing I think that is a problem in the Star Wars universe that doesn't affect Marvel is imagine if every Marvel movie that had a team, a superhero team, that you had to always have a Spider-Man, you have to always have an Iron Man, and you have to always have a Asgardian god, and you have to always have a regular dude with no powers. That's the start. Like every fucking Star Wars show has to have a scoundrel. It has to have a Jedi. It has to have a former soldier who's probably now a bounty hunter. It has to, it's like they're all these archetypes that if you don't check, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. But also, there's only so many ways you can rearrange those deck chairs before people notice that the ship is sinking.
And it's why Andor felt so fresh, right? Because it didn't have that perspective. It didn't feel like we have to make this thing that is Star Wars in every possible aspect.
Right.
It said, let's tell a really cool story in this universe, and we'll just take a slice of it, and we'll tell that story.
Literally, let's take the line where Mon Mothma says many Bothans died to bring us this information, and let's just meditate on what it's like to be a rebel spy.
And the Jedi weren't involved in that, right? So
no Force users.
Get them out of here. We don't need somebody with a lightsaber on this show.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Star Wars, if it grows out of its adolescence into adulthood, will get that confidence that, like, and people are going to be like, what about the Bad Batch? What about... There's certainly examples where they hyperfixate on one of the archetypes I talk about. But, like, the actual getting outside the box and telling the story of a whole fucking galaxy is, they got it. It's right there. And I think then they'll either figure it out or... This thing will always just be what it is, which is something that people outgrow and leave behind. Most people, not everyone.
Yeah, and that the Star Wars archetype for a show comes back to my problems with tone with these shows a lot. They all end up feeling the same, right? Every Star Wars thing is starting to feel like every Marvel thing. They kind of all just blend together. Just the tone, like even the characters, like you were talking about, are kind of similar in a lot of these shows.
The sense of humor, the sensibilities, it is.
Yeah, and that's another reason Andor was a fresh breath of air, because it didn't go for that same tone at all. It went for a much more adult tone, much more serious tone.
Christine has some Star Wars science to drop on us. Says, my feeling as to why Ahsoka was able to enter the world between worlds instead of dying is because she had previously been resurrected by a god that embodied the light side of the Force, called the Daughter. In Clone Wars, Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan find this planet called Mortis, the encounter the three gods that are embodiment of the Force. The Father, balance, the Son, the light side, and the daughter... Oh, wait, Son, the dark side, and the daughter, the light side. That's sexist? It's... Right? Like, the Father is the one that represents the balance, but the Son's the dark side? The fuck is that shit? Okay. Way to go. Way to go. Pan-offensive. Long story short, the Son possesses Ahsoka with the dark side trying to get Anakin, and she ends up dying. The Son manages to then accidentally kill the daughter when she was trying to kill the father so he could take... This is like the Walter White saying, "What the fuck are you talking about, Jesse?" meme. What is this? Mm-hmm. Anyway, Ahsoka literally has the life force of the light side god or a celestial within her. I think this is also why Ezra is able to pull her away from Vader before he landed the killing blow later in Rebels using the world between worlds. Fun fact, ever since she's resurrected, there's been a little convor or owl named the Morai that has kept an eye on Ahsoka and has randomly showed up to guide her to help her in some way. We learned in Rebels through a mural that depicted the three deities with the owl next to the daughter that the Morai has always followed the daughter and is either part of the daughter or some sort of protector. She's the light. Okay, right. The daughter's the good one, not the evil, and that's the son.
Is this owl in the Noti language? Because I don't understand any of it.
Anyway, Christine says, I feel like Ahsoka has some sort of godlike power within her. I'm curious to see how far that actually goes. Okay. As someone who has no idea what the hell any of these words mean, I will say that I'm not a particularly huge fan of Ahsoka being a reincarnated Force god.
Nope.
That seems way too fan-wankish for Filoni to go down there. I don't like it. And I was like, I don't want Luke to be some Force god either. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to blend these weird concepts. Like I think it's cool to have Force ghosts. Yes. Remnants of the residual remnant of like a Force user who is particularly strong.
But personified versions of the Force?
Yeah, not to my taste. How about that?
Yeah, how do you explain that? Like, it's like to me, it's like if there's a guy that you can meet on the other side, and it's like, hey, I'm Mr. Force. This is my son, kind of a shit. This is my daughter, lover, perfect angel. I'd be like, well, shit. I guess the Jedi are wrong. This is the true religion. Mm-hmm. You know.
Doesn't
if
surround us
I
and
die
us,
and there's Yahweh standing for, I got some explaining to do. I'll have to be like, okay, I got this whole thing wrong. Where or if it's Lord Shiva or whatever, then it's like, well, okay, didn't get it right. I don't know. That doesn't seem Star Warsy to me. That seems very Western religious. Well, maybe not. I guess there's a whole pantheon in the Buddhist Hindu traditions too. I don't like it. That's different and weird, and I'm an old man. How about that?
At least you're honest.
Tobias has from Sweden has a more grounded possibility. Is this whole world between worlds business connected to Anakin's efforts to learn how to conquer Padme's death? That I think has some legs. That like Anakin's preoccupation with overcoming death leads him to accidentally backdoor himself into the Qui-Gon Obi-Wan Force Ghost routine, and he would continue that fascination post-death to where he could open these portals kind of up, and that, like I said, there's a lot of connective tissue that needs to be added there. But I like the concept. What do you think?
Yeah, I could hang with that. I don't know. We'll see.
Kristen says, just wanted to mention that Ahsoka actually has small ear holes on both sides of her head that's slightly lower than a human ears would be, which is why her headpiece does provide ear covers. She sent in a picture, and I'll be damned, there are 3 pinky-sized holes on the side of her head.
Yuck.
That the makeup artist just forgot to contrast shade. Because they're lit extremely fine. Like they're very hard to see. Not
a fan. I don't want to see any more of Ahsoka without her headpiece. Get that headpiece back on, lady.
Yeah. Cover your holes.
Right?
It's my perspective.
You're indecent. Get your shit together.
Mark says, I've been enjoying your Ahsoka podcast quite a bit and wanted to share my perspective. I'm about to turn 50 and started my Star Wars experience at 9 years old, seeing Empire Strikes Back at the drive-in theater. Pretty
nice.
Big lawn possibilities for this guy. I'm saying. It's the story's checking out. I love the OG trilogy and the 90s novels. The prequels are okay. For me, didn't love them, didn't hate them. At 38 years old, I had my first child. My wife, who's also a casual Star Wars fan, decided that we want to expose our son to Star Wars at an early age, so we went the animated route. He first started watching Rebels around 5 years old, and I absolutely loved it for what it was. Perfectly reasonable. Had a lot of fun with the Tartakovsky's Clone Wars with my son myself. I think Dave is doing a great job explaining the relationships and plot without excessive exposition. The one plot point missing is what's happened between Ahsoka and Sabine, and that's a plot hole for everyone, as it's never been addressed in the animated shows. I love your take on it because you have a deep core passion for Star Wars, and you are asking questions that, although I know the answer to and often yell back the answers to while listening to your podcast, are perfect for the fans who do not know the answers to ponder. Keep up the amazing work that you do. Between your Yang and the House of R's Yang, I get everything I need each week on my favorite shows and movies. Yeah, Joe and Mal are super great. It's hard to find podcasters I respect more. And also, I don't think they're all sunshine and Pollyanna over there too. I think they criticize the show where they think it deserves it. Just it's different places than it. And also, I think if I recall correctly, Joe and Mal are both almost exactly 10, 15 years younger than us.
Yeah, definitely.
So they're right there on the I want to fuck up your yard demographic. So it's a great. I think it'd be a great companion podcast to ours, for sure. Chad says, with Star Wars spanning so many years, it's obvious different generations will appreciate different aspects of this franchise. I don't think any one fan's opinion means less than the next, so I don't think I'm the worst kind of fan because I'm okay with the Star Wars series that haven't been award-winning masterpieces. Yes, I agree the Powers That Be could do better, but I don't think the fault lies with the fans that don't share your point of view. I appreciate the feedback, Chad, but like, no, not a little bit. The fans don't have any responsibility for the shape of their franchise. What do you think about that, Jim?
Well, like I said, they did shape this franchise a bit. They told Disney, no thank you to these movies. No thank you to your haphazard bullshit that you've been pulling, that you've been calling movies. And they did course correct on that, right?
Yeah. They've foregone, as far as I can tell, $2 billion worth of film revenue by not releasing shitty Star Wars films the last 2-3 years.
For sure. People would have still seen those. But yeah, so of course, I mean, anytime, it's the old saying of voting with your wallet, right? Like, you're voting with your eyeballs here. If you press play on Disney Plus, they get their number goes up by 1, and they say, yes, we got another one, right? Apparently we're doing something right. So the only way you can tell a company like this that you want them to do better is by not engaging with the crap that they're putting out. I'm not saying it's all crap. Obviously, I'm here talking about Ahsoka. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as a fan, you definitely have a responsibility, and I know how hard it is to engage, I guess, responsibly with that responsibility, because a lot of times you just you want more of the thing, you're hoping it'll get better, you've been such a fan for such a long time, you really just want to see it done right, and so you keep hanging on. And that's how they get you, that's what they're counting on, is that they can produce something cheap enough and fast enough that it'll be worth the next dose of it, I guess.
Here's the thing, I love the Fast and Furious franchise, and I don't want it to do better. I don't I was reading some reviews when it first came out talking about Fast 10 being the worst Fast and Furious since I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
It was amazing.
What does it even mean to have a bad Fast and a bad Fast and Furious film would probably look like a shitty Jason Bourne. It'd be too serious. It would not have grounded. So it's but what I don't what I understand is if they tried to do a super serious Fast and Furious and I don't know why would I support that if I didn't want to see it? It's it's Fast and Furious, so I'm a Fast and Furious fan, so I guess I watch it. That's what I don't get. The idea of it might not be the best thing, but it's still this thing, and I like it. It's well, then you do like that thing, and you do want them to make more of it. You'd rather them make more of that than stop making it. I'm on the other side of that, where it's like I wish they would stop making it if they're gonna not make it any better than what they've been making it. So, I
never loved Star Wars more than when they weren't making Star Wars. Right? Like the mid 90s, I loved it, and there was nothing Star Wars coming out as far as visual media goes.
Because it was rare. But yeah, I get it. It's like I'm not trying to make you feel bad for enjoying it, but it's like obviously if the majority of Star Wars fans are like you, then like I'm not gonna fit into that.
And
it's
that's fine. You know, I don't have to be a modern Star Wars fan my entire life, and I haven't been for a long time. I'm starting to get back there, but
yeah. But that's the thing. It's like
give it to others.
It's like I don't know. It's like but that's it's like this is like the Walking Dead fandom all over again, where we had this kind of arc where like in the middle of it, people like, oh, there's just haters, just that. It's like no, show used to be good, used to be better. It never completely lived up to its potential, but you know, people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this. Shouldn't it be good? And to the extent that there's a large fan base that says, nah, we're actually fine with anything as long as it's got zombies in it and, you know, a zombie gets killed every week, we're going to be happy with it, then you are standing in the way of me getting what I want, which is a better show. So we are a little bit at it, like enemies here, but like it's not. I don't take this personal.
Gotcha.
It's weird. I get this animated about this because I care. I don't care. Like I'm actually really respectful about discussing like religion and politics and things like that with people in real life. But for Star Wars, I feel like fuck it, just uncork. Who cares? Like this like at the end of the day, if they ruin Star Wars, it's not going to change the amount of children starving and dying every day, better or worse. So it's like, you know, whatever. But
yeah, so. This is probably going to push this to a 2-hour podcast, but well,
it's the last feedback, so like we're
okay,
done
perfect. I've got this general feeling like there is an oversaturation of marketing and merchandising and fandom in general. Like we are quickly approaching a breaking point for people's ability to be fans of things. Because it's so in our face and like forced down our throats at every turn. Like you can't go on YouTube without seeing the latest 16 reviews of the episode of Marvel show or Star Wars show or any show, honestly, that's out there. And everywhere you turn, there's advertising for new stuff that you can spend your time and money on. It feels to me like we're approaching something where people are just going to throw their hands up and say, I can't do this anymore.
Well, we're completely in uncharted territories, because if you go back to our fathers, the idea that they would be sitting on a podcast and be like, you know, in 2023, howdy doody just doesn't mean the same thing as it used to. Like I keep on wanting to get those ridiculous Lone Ranger feels when but it's just always fucking Lone Ranger and Tonto. Like the idea that you would like something as a child that you would continue to enjoy throughout your entire life is practically unheard of on this planet Earth.
It's new. Yeah.
Like maybe sports fandom is the one area where
for sure, yeah,
people have allowed to be children their entire lives and enjoy it, and nobody bats an eye if you dress up and you wear the clothes. But even that's a lot. Like I'm always amazed if you go back and watch like a football game or a basketball game in the 80s. No one's fucking wearing jerseys. No one's wearing enormous parkas with the theme. It's like they're just dressed like they're just out of game, you know? Like all this stuff, this extreme fanaticism in every level is completely and I think that we just don't know.
And goaded at every turn, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, at what point did they go from like extracting the natural affection from fans, and when did they start fracking it? When they start injecting,
we're here,
injecting fluid at high pressure into our veins and like forcing it out of us. And I think we all feel a little bit of that, like that we're being forced to enjoy some things that we'd much rather just kind of like enjoy.
I can't tell if it's a symptom of being a podcaster. Or if this is a general feeling, but that certainly doesn't help. Each week I have to get on and have an opinion on something that doesn't fucking matter to my life, right? Like,
yeah.
Ahsoka could shit the bed tomorrow, be the worst show anyone's ever seen, and it wouldn't make a difference to my life, except that I'm a podcaster and I have to talk about it. I have to.
There's 2 hours of podcast to fill. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that is a general feeling or if that's just me, but I look around and I see the level that all this is at. I look at San Diego Comic-Con. I look at the number of Comic-Cons and the number of conventions and the amount of fandom that is out there. And I wonder, is this just a natural expression of people's excitement for the things they love? Or is this being, like you said, fracked out of us? Is this something that we are pushed to because of the frenetic pace of all of this stuff? And will it just eventually implode?
And there's not a right and wrong answer, and where everyone's at different places. Like, I imagine it has a lot to do with your age, your enthusiasm, what else you got going on in your life. But like, I feel it. I feel pretty fracked. You know, like it feels good when I feel like we've been on kind of a high of shows like this that have been really fun to cover. But like, yeah, it feels so good to like feel that genuine spark of like, oh my God, I'm seeing something new, and it's so much fun, and I just don't know what's going on, and you know,
we're being milked and fracked, A.Ron.
Forced milking, forced fracking. It's the hottest category in Pornhub now, and it's yeah, I don't know.
I could take the milking on one end, but the fracking on the other is too much.
Yeah, get milked on one end and fracked on the other. All right, well, at that note, we are done fracking and milking you, gentle listener. StarWars@baldmove.com is how you send in your thoughts on the state of modern Star Wars, how many seasons of the 93 combined Rebel and Clone Wars we should watch, and which arcs are the most crucial for us to ignore, and anything else, StarWars@baldmove.com. You can also follow us on, because we do other things besides Star Wars, believe it or not. Best way to find out that is all our social medias at BaldMove everywhere except for TikTok. It's at BaldestMove. Finally, if you're like, I really want to play on this yard. I want to get extra access to the playground equipment, etc. Support.baldmove.com is how you get that. Ad-free feeds, extra audio and video content. Plus, you help us keep doing the thing that presumably you love us to do. So support.baldmove.com. That's it for us on Ahsoka. Tribe of Two here. Until next week, I'm A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
See you then.